for you to refer back to in the future. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Ben Ezel. I'm the project manager for the CMMI implementation here for our Long Island projects. This is a continuation of the session we had last week, which was the orientation session for CMMI, where we covered what CMMI means, and how we are taking those CMMI best practices and applying them to our existing stage gate process, and how all projects for Long Island will begin to follow these enhanced set of processes. So once again, what we're doing is taking the CMMI best practices and applying them to the existing stage gate process to enhance them and as part of our continuous improvement program. So today we'll have a couple of presenters. One is Naren with the overview of the stage gate process. This is the training deck, that's the playbook actually that he uses for training. And then we'll have Siva. Siva is our SME for CMMI processes, and he will be covering the enhancements we've made to the SGP as they relate to project managers and our PGMs. Excuse me. We'll also show you, give you a little brief tour of the new EPMO site for Long Island. And as I said, we're recording this session, so those who couldn't join us will be able to review this later or for yourselves as well for future reference. So once again, thank you for joining. We will, just so you'll know, set up additional training sessions for other key roles on your projects. So we have sessions set up for system architects, technical leads, lead developer, also business analysts, test leads, controllers and schedulers, key roles on your project, and also key participants in the process. So we have individual targeted sessions for them. I've actually invited all the project managers to those sessions. You're optional if you wish to join. You're certainly welcome, and it may actually help you work with your key team members on their responsibilities regarding the process if you do join. So with that, if anyone has a question before we get started, before we start with Naren and his walkthrough of the playbook for the SGP, does anyone have any questions right off? And you may be on mute. All right, in that case, Naren, please take it away.
Okay, good afternoon to all of you. So let's get started in this journey, right? So we are talking about implementation of CMMI on Long Island and adoption of CMMI to the projects to get certified to a level 3, right? So in order to understand what we are doing under the Long Island CMMI initiative, we also thought that it is beneficial for you to understand the underlying foundational layer, which is the stage gate process, right? So stage gate process has been rolled out in New Jersey last year, around the April timeframe, and we have been using this as our project execution framework, okay? So I'm going to take next 20 minutes to 25 minutes to explain you what is this SGP and what is expected and what are the deliverables, and how do you basically look the project management lifecycle deliverables through the SGP framework. Okay. So going on to the purpose of this playbook, right? The playbook is like whatever we are going to go through now, the number of slides, is to explain the stage gate framework, the key activities that are expected the project teams to perform, guiding them through the framework, and basically to achieve the excellence in managing the project activities, right? So the playbook has multiple slides and multiple files, but this is an introduction of that SGP process as a playbook. So looking at what is this framework, and we keep talking about the stage gate process and etc., right? And why this got rolled out is with a basic vision and the focus on setting up a foundation for standardized expectation of project lifecycle, deliverables, and estimation accuracy. These are the very three key words that we wanted to achieve by adopting the stage gate process. The expectations of project lifecycle, that means you deliver the project with quality under the budget and then within the time frame that has been approved by your sponsor, correct? The deliverables, we have not only the delivery of change documents going into production, but also have a lot of reviews, approvals, compliances with cybersecurity team, integration team, testing COE, etc., etc. The final thing that is really coming out of this SGP framework is the estimation accuracy. So most of the time we estimate the project way in the early stages of the project when we have basically known something about the project requirements, but not are clear about what type of solution we are going to deliver, what is the design of it, and how many resources or how much effort is required, etc. So as we go through the number of stages and the accuracy keeps on improving, and we will keep on becoming more and more accurate. What does it do? At the end of the project lifecycle, it's going to improve the project portfolio health and also the reporting of the projects to the senior leadership team. Okay. So when you go to the stage gate process, right, as the name itself explains, right, there are two pieces in this, the stages and the gates. So the entire project lifecycle has been divided into 7 stages and 7 gates. Okay. Each stage represents a specific set of activities and deliverables. And at each gate, you are supposed to provide a proof of completing those deliverables in the previous stage. Okay, it's a very simple mechanism here. You complete the deliverables looking at the guidance and the reference documents. Then when you come to the gate, you provide the scorecard and get the approval and move to the next stage. So as you can see the stages, the objective of these stages are the project lifecycle is broken into so many stages, and also it will be improving the maturity, right? So it will be improving the maturity as you pass stage to stage, getting more and more details about the project requirements, about the effort estimation, about the cost estimation, etc., etc. So like I said, at each of the gates, you will be presenting a full checklist of items with the proof that you have completed those deliverables. Okay, that's the basic framework. So if you look at what is the objective of that, right? At a stage gate approach, when you look at the playbook, you will be seeing the top box explaining you what exactly is the stage and the gates. And the bottom portion is going to bring you the details of the deliverables and what are the project artifacts that are expected and each of the stage, right? So it is like a matrix. You look at the horizontals to understand what it is and the verticals to understand what to do, right? So that's how you read this stage gate framework and the reference slides that are going to come in the next few slides. So like, for example, this is the waterfall approach that we have. So as you know that, most of you are new project managers or project managers that have been handling projects for Long Island. So we have both methodologies adopted, right? The basic ones, the Agile and the Waterfall. So we were adopting Agile projects a few months back, like before year. But then now we opened up the gates. The methodology should be selected by the project team along with the sponsors or the line of business. Between these two teams, there should be a discussion, and based on what will deliver the best value to the business should be selected. Okay. Sometimes the project can deliver the best as a waterfall approach, as a big bang, or like an agile methodology, you deliver in chunks. So the business can start getting the taste of those deliverables and then try to refine and get a better product as we move along. So again, the framework, like I said, you have the 7 stages mentioned on the top with the 7 gates in between. And these are the swim lanes. Okay. So each swim lane is named after a particular team that basically oversees those activities, and by providing you with the reference information, details, processes, governance steps, etc. Okay. So, and the best part that you have to look at is the middle swim lane, which is improving your estimation. Okay. You may start with almost like a 50 to 100% deviation when you are in the create concept. So as the names of these stages suggest you, create concept. I'll take a couple of minutes to explain so that you understand what exactly are we looking at. At the create concept level, this is a very, very early in the game. Business comes to you and saying that I need these enhancements, or I need this, these changes to go to production. Okay, so we pick up those requirements and then we start developing a business case out of it. Business case is nothing but a formalized way of presenting the requirements, initial cost estimates, the risk, what project teams are getting engaged, and how much is going to be the overall cost and overall effort for this, for that business requirement. Once you have the business case, you present it to the senior leadership team, you get the approval, and then you create a project, right? So the project is created in ServiceNow with a PRJ number, and then you start doing the project-related activities. So if you look at it, a project takes birth here in the project initiation. As soon as you pass the gate 2, the project is created with the needed WBSs and then proper mapping of the WBSs to the client accounting, etc. Okay. Once the project is created and handed over to the GPM, the group product manager, or to the project managers, if they were assigned by then they become responsible to carry the project all along the next stages and the gates. Once the initiation stage is done, where you will be getting all these financial discussions with the vendors and engaging the vendors, initial discussions with the cybersecurity team or the integration team, etc., etc. Then you will be consolidating slowly the business requirements into the detailed requirements. And then your estimates will go up a little bit on terms of cost. So you can see, instead of being 50 to 100% deviation, you are now coming into the range of plus minus 50%. Then next stage is the initial design. For those detailed requirements that you have captured under the project initiation, how do you design the solution? Right? You will have technical SMEs, the technical teams, your lines of businesses to provide you the business knowledge. You start discussing about the initial design, discuss with the vendors about the proposals, etc., etc. Again, the estimation is improving here to minus 20 to plus 30%. Move to the next stage, which is the design phase. That means you are formalizing your design to deliver the requirement that have been consolidated in project initiation phase. Here you will be bringing up the architectural design reviews, security design reviews, and then you're also formalizing the way the testing has to be conducted, what type of testings you have to do, etc. Okay. And then from there onwards, you are moving into the real execution mode of the project, which is direct and manage. where you start developing things, either it is code or configuration changes or system implementation or application configuration, etc., etc. During this phase, again, you are improving your cost, your estimates. You're almost coming as close as plus minus 10%. Okay. So at gate 5, we are expecting a formal revisit of your estimates. Okay, that means you will be refocusing on the final design that has come up, which satisfies all the stakeholders, and then comes up with the effort and cost estimation, present it to your line of business and the sponsors and the senior leadership team, so that they are aware that a project has been estimated at $1 million in business case level, has now, because of various design considerations, has gone up by X amount of dollars or has gone down by X amount of dollars. Both ways you can present it to the SLT and the sponsor, and so that they can make a well-informed decision to continue or to discontinue. Okay, based on the rate of the return on investment. So that's where the most important decision again is taken at the stage gate, the gate 5. Once it is approved formally, and then you are moving into the development, other things, you do the development activity, unit test it, proper testing, all other types of testings, develop the artifacts, get them reviewed and approved, be ready for production, prepare the production approval process, and then go to the change management, get approved, then pass the gate 6. That means move on to the post-deployment, move the changes into production and move to the post-deployment. This is an overall architecture or the framework of the SGP process. In the next slide, we can see that the swim lanes are increasing. We have the cybersecurity team, testing COE, integration COE, audit, etc. So we keep adding more and more as more and more teams are getting embedded into the SGP framework, and they want to also participate in the project lifecycle so that they can input their activities and get the proper estimates. So moving on to the agile methodology, you can see that it follows the same except from stage 3 onwards, right? So once you cross over to the initial design, but in the waterfall, but in an agile environment, you go iterative. You have plan, sprint release, and refine and come back. So planning is nothing but where you plan all your user stories, sprint planning, and then you will be conducting the sprint user story grooming sessions, user acceptance criteria, etc. Move to the sprint release, you will be executing the changes and then getting them tested, going to refine mode. If you are delivering something into production, act accordingly. If you are not, you are staging something, give a demo to the business, and then go back to the planning stage till you make this iteration to see that some changes are being moved into production, which we basically call it as a release, right? So, and then post-deployment stays the same. The swim lanes have been configured and customized for Agile and waterfall separately. So you will see that there are certain changes that you will observe in these slides about the swim lanes, correct? So moving on to understand that, what exactly are the templates. So at each of these swim lane, when you look from the verticalness, like for example, if you look at the project initiation, there are certain tasks, and these tasks have templates which will become deliverables at the end of the stage, right? Like for example, requirement gathering sessions are conducted, detailed requirement gathering are done, detailed requirements are captured to deliver the requirement document. Same thing, functional specification documents or TDS, technical design specifications, etc. So all these templates are available at this link. We have created a SharePoint site where we have all these templates and tools that can be used for your project execution. Then the next one is to understand, one size does not fit everybody, right? Every project. So how do we customize the whole thing? We have designed the entire framework, but now we have to chip away certain portions of that framework to suit the project based on the size of the project, the risk of the project, the regulatory requirements of the project, and the compliance requirements of the project, right? So you will have a matrix that is created based off of, like you can see, a project is less than $1 million, is highly visible, risky, that should be having certain deliverables, certain project artifacts identified. Similarly, a project which is a huge project, but has less risk, less visible, or less on the cybersecurity requirements or regulatory requirement, then you can always scale it down. That's the type of matrix we want to do. The methodology considerations, like I already explained, we are open for agile, waterfall, and also a hybrid approach. Okay, so we are enhancing those slides that you saw for agile and waterfall. I think we have the slides updated in the latest version of the playbook. We will be rolling out these hybrid slides very shortly. Okay, so moving on to the matrix. So look at the matrix where you can clearly see there are not one type of parameter that decides what is your project and what it should be. See, the application and infrastructure projects more than $1 million, definitely you start discussing, looking at the first column. Anything less than 250, greater than 250, infrastructure services and financial placeholders are different types of projects that we have. Okay, so each of these projects will be scrutinized for the other parameters, like you can see what is the size, that's what you heard, and what is the risk. Is it a very high risk project that need to be addressed immediately? And that's how it should be looking at it. Is it a cyber risk involved in this? Are we doing this project to alleviate a cyber risk observation by the CSRC team or by audit, whatever it is? Then the visibility. Is this project highly visible, critical to the senior leadership team and to our line of business? The last one is the financial management. Are we consistent, and is a very comprehensive controls are required for these projects? Because certain projects have got a big impact on the IT financials and also line of business financials. We will be categorizing them. So looking at these set of parameters, you decide which group you fall into. And based off of that, then you will be going into your methodology considerations, right? If you are, what do you want to be, a waterfall or agile? Like I told, you can start discussing with your business and understand the requirements, etc., and then come up with what it is, a waterfall or an agile. And certain guidelines are provided here. Here is the methodology that we propose to be used on projects: waterfall, agile, and iterative. Like iterative is being the hybrid of waterfall and agile. For certain stages, you can use hybrid, the waterfall approach, and then switch to agile approach, and continue with that. So the tailoring matrix is, like I said, based on the project type matrix. You can tailor your project artifacts. You can follow certain guidelines to see whether you have to deliver all the templates, or you can get exception for certain templates. As you can see, some of these templates are expected to be delivered when the project lifecycle is going on. For $1 million, we expect almost everything. Okay, for greater than 250 and less than 1 million, there are a couple of relaxations. Same thing, less than 250, more relaxations. Infrastructure services and financial placeholders are like routine jobs, right? Like a simple wireless point to be changed from one place to the other place. Those like small things have a lot more relaxation. Okay. This is continues with that. And then how do we put this SGP into action? We defined a framework. We expect the projects to absorb and adopt it. But how do we make sure that the projects are adopting it, right? So the method that we followed in NJ side is what is called SGP scorecard. Like I told you, we talked about the stages till now and what happens at the gate. At a gate, we expect you to submit a scorecard with all the details of what you have done in the previous stage. Did you complete all the templates? Did you review them? Did you get the approvals? Where did you store them? Provide all these details in the scorecard, and the scorecard has been configured and customized to suit your the project deliverables. Okay, submit it to EPM or SharePoint, which is the NJ-based SharePoint site, and we review those scorecards. And provided we got all the details, then we approve for the project to move from one stage to the other stage. So this is the stage gate. This is an Excel file. You will see that it has all these stages mentioned here. So if you are in a project initiation and moving into design phase, then you will complete the project initiation tab. I provide all the details, and we expect the project to be 100% compliant before moving into the next stage, or at least have a proper explanation and approvals for any exceptions. Okay, so this is how it looks. When you hear the evidence to provide whether you did all these activities, if it is in service now, provide the link, etc. Okay, so with that, some basic of the Agile Scrum process that you all know. Most of you are project managers, experienced enough on the Agile methodology also. You have the same iterative approach, which we have seen in the previous framework. So we are not too far away from the fundamental Agile and the waterfall methodologies, but the framework, how do we implement the project from the inception to the completion, is what is being guided by the SGP process. Okay, so with that as the foundational layer, so I just want to give the introduction and give it to the CMMI team to carry on from there. So we adopted this basic framework and then brought certain changes that are suitable or required by CMMI conditions or guidelines. So that's what the changes that have happened, and some templates have been modified. They were made more closer or compliant with the CMMI guidelines, which I think we are going to look through as Shiva takes us through the next percent. Okay, so that's the session for SGP. Any questions? Okay, that's good. Okay, so I'm handing over now to the CMMI team to carry on from here. Shiva.
Sure. Thanks, Naren. So let me share my screen. See if you can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Siva Ramuri. I'm actually from Cognizant, helping PSCG Long Island team in implementing CMMI level 3. So next maybe 1 hour or so, I wanted to walk you through the what is CMMI, and also I'll be talking about the process changes we made. So far Naren explained the stage gate process. Right now we have the framework in place, which is already existing, and we reviewed that the existing stage gate process. We have identified what more we need to do to comply with CMMI level 3 requirements, and we made some changes to the process. And I wanted to walk you through those so that you know exactly what we need to do to be compliant with level 3 requirements. Okay, so next an hour or so I'll be covering. I'll start with the overview of CMMI. I'm sure some of you are already familiar with the CMMI model. I'll just take 5 minutes just to explain the requirements of what is CMMI and why we are doing it. Then I will jump into the actual process changes we have incorporated. We'll take topic by topic, and I'll talk about estimation. When we, as a project managers, when we are working on estimation, what are the new changes we made to the existing stage gate process to be compliant with CMMI level 3. Similarly, project planning and tracking, and we will talk about how do we, what changes we brought for the risk and opportunity management, and finally we'll talk about the peer reviews. Okay. So before we go there, right, I just wanted to set the context here, right? So I'm sure you might have heard this phrase earlier. The quality of products is largely determined by the quality of the process that is used to develop and maintain it, right? So it's a very, very famous quote which came from Watts Humphrey, who is the quality guru, right? So it's all about the process we adapt to execute the project, right? So the quality is very, very important, the quality of the process. But some people say, okay, no, I have very extremely talented people. That's good. We need people, but people alone cannot, make the change, right? Now we need to couple the process and the tools together, and process, the people, and the technology together to make sure that whatever we are doing is very, very successful, right? Even our finest people cannot perform at their best when the process is not understood or it's not operating at its best. Okay, very, very, very important, right? But how do we determine our process is good, right? We can't just say that, okay, our process is wonderful or the world-class process. No, we can't say that. We need to have some kind of an yardstick against which we can measure, right? Otherwise, how do I know where is my we need to have some kind of a benchmarking, right? So that's where the CMMI comes into picture. Okay, CMMI model, right, is an yardstick against which a maturity of an organization processes can be measured, because CMMI is a collection of best practices. Okay, so it's evolved like over two decades now. It started in 1990, right? So it's evolved over a period of time. The industry, the leaders, right? So they came together. They had a brainstorming. They put together all the best practices which are required for executing in the project successfully, right? So they put all of them together into the CMMI, the model framework, right? So we can use this as an yardstick to see, hey, where are we stand? At PSEG Long Island, okay, where do we stand? Like, are we level 1, level 2, level 3? We need to know that. That's how we can use that to make some improvements to our processes. Okay. One beauty of the CMMI model is it tells you what to do. Okay. It does not prescribe how to do or who has to do it. Every organization is different. Some companies are huge, large companies, multi-billion-dollar companies. Some could be only like $1 million companies, right? So the CMMI, the way this model is designed is it tells you what to do. Okay, what are the best practices for executing a project, right? It does not tell you who should do it or how it has to be done, because the model is being implemented by like companies like PSEG, the IT companies, and I've seen companies who are implementing pure, the manufacturing companies, right? If you get into details on how to do it, it's very, very difficult. So that's the reason why they kind of abstracted away from the details on how to do. They just mentioned what needs to be done. That's the reason why this model is very, very, very popular. Okay. So CMMI is, as I mentioned, we have a current model is a version 2.0. It's a collection of best practices, right? So it helps us to improve the performance. Okay, it helps us to improve the quality, the cost, the schedule, and the functionality, right? So I've seen companies, they've actually achieved multi-fold improvements in their on-time delivery, in their cost performance metrics, and also they've reduced their defect density drastically by implementing CMMI best practices. Okay, and there are 5 levels, as I mentioned, right? The level 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest. It's initial, and as you see on the screen, level 5 is the highest level. It's called optimized level. Okay, so each level built on top of each other. Okay, as we implement the higher mature practices, we are actually increasing the capability, and in a way we are actually reducing the risk also. Okay, so that's what we are doing. So currently at PSCG, we have a mandate from LIPA to be at CMMI level 3 for certain practices. Okay, so that's what we are doing. So if you see here at on my screen, level 3 is considered is categorized as defined. What does this means? Right now, we have at PSCG, we have so many projects being executed, PSCG LI, right? So the expectation here is we don't, every project follows the process, but the requirement at level 3 is you define process at the PSCG LI level, and all the projects adopt the same process. you can do tailoring here and there based on the size and complexity, as mentioned by Naren, a few minutes back. But in a nutshell, what we need to is we need to establish an organization standard process, and every project within that organization should follow the same process, using the tailoring guidelines, so that we can improve, we can bring in some kind of a standardization, and with that we can improve the quality and performance. Okay, so there are 20 practice areas in CMMI. Okay, so practice areas are, don't get confused, it's nothing but as I mentioned, it's a collection of best practices, right? So though the CMMI, the model architects, right, the people who design the CMMI model, right, so they kind of grouped all those best practices into various categories, and those categories are, we call them as a practice areas. The very first thing what you see is requirement development and management. Okay, that means all the best practices pertaining to how we capture the customer requirement, transform them into a system requirement, into interface requirements, right? All that, you put it into requirement development and management practice area. That's all. Okay, so like that, there are total 20 practice areas. Okay, but for us, we are only focusing on 14 of them currently. Okay, for 2022, we are focusing on 14 practice areas. Okay, so what we did, before we started this journey in April of this year, we did a assessment to understand, okay, we have the stage gate process at the PSEG LI, right? So we did a gap analysis. Okay, CMMI, we again using the CMMI, the model, right? We have identified the gaps. Okay, so now we are in the transformation phase or transform phase, right? So here we have completed build phase. Right now, what we did was we have refined the existing stage gate process to incorporate the CMMI best practice. So that is what we have done, and we concluded that activity July 15th. Okay, so we are currently in the enablement phase. That means we are providing training. We are trying to make sure that all the practitioners, the people like you, the project managers, the business analysts, the test engineers, like architects, right, are the development team, right? So we want to make sure that everybody understands, updated processes. They need to understand the stage gate process, as well as the changes we brought into incorporating the level 3 requirement. We want to educate that, right? Educate the teams, right? That's what we are doing. And we'll be doing that, throughout the year, starting from August 15th till October end, we will be doing that, right? But the in-person trainings will be there between now and August 15th. But after that, we will be doing a lot of hand-holding, workshops and all that. Okay. So once we do educate everybody, set the expectations right, then we will be expecting project teams to start implementation of those processes. Okay, so that is the process we are in currently. Okay, so we are actually in the training. That's the reason why you're here. We wanted to communicate to you guys, what are the changes we made to the existing processes. Okay, so as I mentioned, CMMI is adapting the CMMI best practice or framework, right, applying to this existing stage gate process. We are not replacing the stage gate process. We took the existing stage gate process and we tweaked it by incorporating some of the CMMI best practice. That's all we have done. We still need to follow the stage gate process framework. Okay. So as I mentioned, we will be training people. The first session we are doing it for the PGMs and PMs, but we will also be training, doing the similar trainings for their respective areas. We'll be training the business analysts, the system architects, lead developers, test engineers, like that. We have some key dates here. We wanted everybody to be, aware of this, right? September 12th, we have a, checkpoint review, just to make sure, whether we are following everything, what we decide, what we, define. And also there is a readiness review on October 3rd, and October 24th to 28th is when we actually go for a external CMMI appraisal. Okay, so we need to engage an external entity to come in and audit us to confirm whether we are adopting the CMMI best practices. Okay, so that's the timeline there. The next slide here is basically want to show you the PSCG Long Island team has set up a new SharePoint site where you will find all the updated processes. As at this point of time, only the Long Island team is adopting the CMMI requirements. Okay, so what we did was we took the existing processes, the stage gate process that is being followed at New Jersey, and we copied all of them into the Long Island EPMO SharePoint, and we have updated them to incorporate the processes. Okay, so just to give a quick, I just wanted to show how these the SharePoint looks for a quick second. 1 second. Just to give you a look and feel of that. This is how the EPMO SharePoint looks like. When you go here, you see all the playbooks and the processes and also the templates. Okay, for example, if you go here, right? So here you see this, the estimation process, project planning and tracking process, requirement development management process. You all should be having access to this right now. Okay, so similarly, if you go back to the EPMO page SharePoint, you can also see the templates. Okay, so we also have another place where we have all the templates here. Okay, so if you are following a design review checklist, we have a project execution plan template, risk and opportunity template, requirement clarification template, business requirement doc. So all these documents have been revised incorporating the CMMI requirements. So once you start adopting these, we should be compliant with the CMMI model requirements. Okay. So this link is here. At the end of the session, I want you to go back and check your access. And if you have any difficulty, please reach out to Ben. Ben Ezel is the project manager from the PSCG side, and he'll help you with the access. Okay. So now I actually wanted to get into the actual topic. Okay, what are the process changes? Okay. So now this diagram I put together just to give a context, right? For example, if you see here, we need to start with establishing the estimates, a very, very fundamental thing, right? Now we need to estimate the effort. We need to estimate the duration. We need to estimate the resources required. So once we estimate, right? So then we need to develop a project execution plan. And we need to plan for things, right? We need to, have a strategy document outlining how are we going to execute it. Okay. So and that, and also we need to obtain a commitment to the PEP and other like a project schedule and your budget, right? So from the stakeholders, once we do that and use that project execution plan for tracking purpose. Okay, so it's not that you plan for your project in the very beginning of the project and forget about it, right? So it's it's a living document, right? So we need to constantly monitor, hey, how many hours I planned for this, how many hours I spent, when am I supposed to complete, when did I complete, right? So you need to, as a project managers, we need to constantly monitor and track the project, and so that you can you can take actions if required to make sure that we can complete the project according to what we plan. Okay, so I will be covering in the next 30 minutes or so. I will be talking about what all the things we need to do from an estimation perspective, what all the things we need to do from a planning perspective, and also what all the things we need to do from a monitoring perspective. So that's why I kind of put this diagram there. I'll start with the estimation first. Okay, so I'm sure many times some senior management comes back to you and says, okay, tell me how long it's going to take, how many hours do you need? It's all, these are some of the conversation we have from the leadership team, right? So when we simply say I need 10,000 hours, 50,000 hours and all that, but what CMMI model says is, we cannot just do that. We need to come up with some kind of a systematic way to estimate the effort. We cannot just pull the number from out of nowhere and give them. We need to have some rhyme or reason how did we arrive at. Okay, the CMMI model says we need to estimate the size. Okay, so I'll give a simple example. I live in a Washington DC area, right? If somebody comes and asks me, hey Shiva, if you wanted to go to Long Island, how long it is going to take, right? I simply calculate in my mind, okay, from here to Long Island, okay, I have to drive like a 300 miles. Then I know that I can go like a 60 miles an hour. I calculate inside my mind and I say, okay, I need like 6 hours or so, right? So if the number of miles goes higher, that means I need more time, or I more hours. Like that. So similarly, even for project, right? We need to estimate the size, because the size is a driver that will influence how many hours you need or how long you need. It's the same thing, same analogy if you use, right? So the model says estimate the size, and using the size, you derive your effort, the duration, and the cost. And from there, you can determine how many resources do you need to deliver the solution. So that is what the model requiring us to do. Okay. So then if I go here, then if I go to the key requirements, what do we need to do to make that happen, right? So first thing what we need to do is we need to develop the scope of the work. The very first thing we have to do is we need to outline our work breakdown structure. Okay, what are the component or subcomponents or a task you need to perform, to successfully complete the project, right? Work breakdown structure is a very, very, very key element. So once that is done, right? Once the WBS is done, then we need to identify the size. Okay, so typically the size, right? Now, when a software if you are developing a software, typically the size is estimated based on lines of code, function point, feature point, right? Or if you are following agile, people estimate like a t-shirt sizes or a story points, right? So, but what we are introducing at PSCGLI is the size drivers, okay? Effort and cost drivers, right? So the complexity factor we are introducing is something called in complexity and the risk and complexity factor for every WBS element. Okay, so once the size estimation can be based on the risk and complexity of a task or a work item, right? And for each task or a work item, you assign, let's take, I have a task which in the past I took like 1,000 hours to complete this task, but this time there is some complexity involved for this project. Same design, but I have some complexity, some technical challenges. So I'm assigning some higher complexity, right, or a higher risk to that. And based on that, your number of hours you require to complete a given task will vary, right? So that is what we are doing. We are using risk and complexity factors as a size of the solution. So once that is done, based on the size, right, we need to derive our effort to execute the project. Okay, so we need to say, okay, once you have your size determined, right, then you need to determine whether you need like a 10,000 hours or 20,000 hours, right? If the size goes up, obviously your number of hours goes up too. Like in the example I gave, like number of miles versus number of hours, right? It's the same thing. The size here, we are using complexity and risk factor as a size driver, and we are using that to derive the effort and cost. Okay, so what we did is we have actually estimated a cost estimator template, which is part of the stage gate process. At the current stage gate process, there is a cost estimator template. We have updated that to incorporate the size estimation methodology into it, right? Okay, so that now we comply with the CMMI requirements. Okay, and other element here is we need to use the historical data for estimating. Okay, so you need to have some kind of a historical data, whether it is, okay, how long it took for me, in the project which I have completed like 2 years back. So you need to have that repository. It's a knowledge as well, right? Now you need to have that data so that your estimations are much more accurate. You can't just pull the number. You use your historical data so that your confidence level of your estimation will be much higher. Okay, so those are the requirements from a CMMI requirements. Developing this WBS, estimating the size, and deriving the effort and duration based on the size, and also using your historical data when you are estimating. So these are the 4 key requirements to comply with CMMI, and we have updated our cost estimator template to meet that requirement. And that template is actually available on the PSEGLI SharePoint. Okay, so key process changes. Okay, what we did. Okay, so we actually developed a estimation process. That's what I was showing you a few minutes back. If you go to here playbook and processes, you will see there is a process called estimation process. Okay, so you can go through that process to get familiarized with what I explained a few minutes back. And also there is a cost estimator template, right? This is an existing template we have updated, right? So you take that and start using that for your projects going forward. Okay, and here I've actually provided a hyperlink. You click on it. We will be sharing this deck after this training. So you click on it, it will take you, if you are connected to the PSEGLI network, it will open up the document directly. Okay, so that's about the estimation. So moving on to the next topic is the planning. Okay, so once you have your your size and effort and the budget, right? So then we need to use that data to plan. Okay, you need to identify how much budget do I need, what is the schedule, how many resources, all the things we need to take into consideration. That is what involved in the project planning practice area of a CMMI. Okay, so I'm actually not going through this document. It's like a very obvious. What happens when the planning is not done well. It's like a negative statements here. I'm skipping these slides because you're all very familiar with it. Okay, so moving on to the key requirements. Okay, so in the estimation, we have derived the effort, we have derived the cost, overall cost, that including your outsourcing cost as well as the hardware software cost. Now we need to develop budget, because you don't need, like, if your project is like $1 million, you don't need $1 million on day one. You need it over a period of time, right? When do you need it? Do you need it in quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4? You need to give that budget to the senior management so that they can provide the approval. Okay, so based on the effort and cost, right? So we need to develop the schedule. Right now we are using the P6 Primavera tool, right? So we need to do that and make sure that the P6 schedule identifies or lists all the tasks that needs to be performed, and also make sure that there is a person assigned to that. Okay, it's not that we just dump all the tasks and not assign them to an individual. So we need to have a person assigned to those tasks, and also we need to identify the dependencies. Okay, otherwise your project schedule of no use. We need to identify what are the critical dependencies in the schedule. So those are the requirements from a CMMI model perspective, and we have incorporated those requirements into the process. Then, considering the labor cost and outside services and material cost, we need to develop a budget. Okay, so how much budget do you need month-wise in the year 1, year +1, or year +2, however many years your project duration is going to be? You need to give some kind of an estimated budget, right? So that is what is required from a CMMI perspective. You need to I'm sure you're doing this already. It's not something new, right? Then once this is done, then you need to develop a project execution plan. Okay, so there is a existing template as part of the stage gate process. We have actually revised that to incorporate some additional elements. Okay, so there were some things missing, so we have added that. So what is PEP? PEP is like your strategy document, right? So your execution methodology, right? Even if something, if you're project manager, you're off for, you went on vacation to Punta Cana somewhere, right? So somebody, if he opens a document, they should be able to know exactly, hey, what is the strategy? How are we going to execute this project? Right? So that is the purpose of this document. Okay, so we have updated the PEP template with some additional sections. Like, for example, current PEP template does not have a training need section. Current template does not have a tailoring section. The current PEP template does not have a section for documenting the project environment. So what we did, we have added those sections. So all you need to do is, take the latest PEP template, prepare one for your project. If you already have one, all you need to do is add these additional sections or missing sections, then you are good. Okay, then once this is done, right, so we need to make sure that the PEP is reviewed and approved, right? So because we need to make sure that the plan is being approved and baseline, so that that is used as a basis for tracking purpose. Okay. The next important requirement here is ensure consistencies among other plans. Okay. Again, projects is not, we are not going to execute in isolation. There are a lot of dependencies, right? You work with vendors and other partners, right? So we need to take we need to take everything into perspective. We need to take everything into consideration. Okay. So are all the plans aligned? Okay. Sometimes I've seen an example. Okay, so you prepare a project schedule and you said, okay, I'm going to move to production on so and so date, but one component was outsourced to another vendor, but another vendor has a plan, different plan. That plan is not aligned to your release schedule. Then it's a problem, right? So for that reason, what CMMI says is you need to identify all the related planning documents and review them together so that you're not missing anything. Okay, there are no last minute surprises. Okay, then you also need to do reconciliation. Sometimes you have a schedule, right? Then you may have other constraints, right? Or you may have some resource issues, right? So you may have to do some level loading. You may have to adjust your resources or your schedule in such a way that that can be implementable, that can be achievable. Right. So once you do the reconciliation of your project schedule, we need to make sure that the entire project team reviews it and provides commitment. Typically, this is done as a part of your project kickoff meeting. Sometimes some companies or some project team, they call it as a project harmonization meeting. You invite all your key stakeholders and review it together, and everybody gives a thumbs up. Is there anything you think we are asking out of norm here? These are some of the best practices. I'm sure we are doing most of the things here, but we just wanted to make sure we consistently do it across the project so that we can improve the maturity. Okay, moving on to the next slide here. Again, this one is just to summarize the key message, what all we need to do, and also I've actually hyperlinked. As I told you, we have we have updated it. We have actually created a new process. Again, if I go here to the PSEG Long Island, there is a project planning and tracking process. It's a process document. It explains what all needs to be done and who has to do it, right? Again, I'm not opening the document right now, but you can review it, open that, and familiarize yourself. Similarly, we have a execution plan template. Again, we took the existing plan and we have incorporated or added some additional sections to to make sure that plan is comprehensive. And we also have a life cycle guidelines. Okay, Naren actually mentioned that there are 3 different life cycles, waterfall, agile, and hybrid, right? So we kind of pulled all of them together and we provide some guidance. Okay, when to select what life cycle. Okay, typically you have a waterfall life cycle people follow when you have very, very solidified requirements, right? You're not anticipating any drastic changes in the requirements. Then typically people follow waterfall, or you have very there are some lot of regulations you need to follow. In those cases, people typically follow waterfall methodology, right? Whereas agile, right, is the requirements are evolving every day, right? And you don't know what customer wants, right? So the needs are changing on a regular basis. In that case, you use waterfall methodology, the agile methodology, right? So like that, we provided in a guidance on what all the various life cycle models available for us to use at PSEG-LI, and how to select, what was the basis for us to select which life cycle to be adopted. Similarly, we also provided some kind of a tailoring guidelines. Again, as I mentioned, because we are going for CMMI level 3, right? The expectation is we define a process at the organization level, at the PSEG-LI level. Okay. And it's not practically possible for every project to follow the same process. It's not possible because one project could be greater than $1 million project, other could be maybe $100,000 project, right? You cannot put a bureaucratic process on like $100,000 project. So we provide some kind of a tailorings which are allowed. Okay, so there are some allowed tailorings depending upon your project type or a project size. Okay, and you can still go, if you're doing those tailorings, you don't need any approval, special approval. But if you wanted to do some tailoring beyond what is approved in these tailoring guidelines, obviously you need to take an approval from the EPMO team. Right? For example, if you say that, okay, I'm not going to do business requirement document, I'm not going to do some cybersecurity risk, hey, that's required by the process. So if you wanted to not do it, there should be some valid justification, and that needs to be approved by the EPMO team, and that needs to be documented in the project execution plan also. Okay, so those are the key process changes with respect to planning practice area. Moving on to the next topic is the monitoring and control, right? So once you have your process, right? Once you have your PEP, project execution plan, your budget, your effort, your costs are baseline, your P6 schedule is baseline. The next thing what we need to do is we need to use that to track your progress. Okay, because if you don't track your project, you don't know where you are, right? For that reason, you need to take your baseline or approved project schedule, your project execution plan, your approved your budget and schedule. Use that as a basis to track your project progress and take appropriate corrective actions when there is a significant deviations. Again, so let's take every project is different, right? For example, you plan to complete a task in 1,000 hours, you end up taking 1,005 hours. Hey, am I going to initiate a root cause analysis for 5 hours more? You plan to complete a task in 1,000 hours, you end up taking 1,005 hours, right? You spend 5 hours more, right? Do you think does it warrant you to go and do a root cause analysis why somebody spent 5 hours more? Doesn't make sense, right? So that's the reason why what we need to do is that every project, they know what can they tolerate, what is the the tolerance they can allow, in terms of effort, in terms of schedule, what is considered, how much deviation can they accept, right? And if the deviation goes beyond your accepted or allowed, let's take, if you say that, okay, hey, anything less than 15% deviation, I'm good. I'm fine. I have some contingencies. That means you're fine. And if it is less than 15%, you don't need to do anything. But if your deviation goes beyond 15%, probably you may have to take some corrective actions. Corrective actions could be pushing the schedule out or adding more resources so that you can bring it back, right? So you take whatever is appropriate. Model does not prescribe what action you need to take. All it says is use your project approved plan to monitor the progress, and also define your significance, what is considered as a significant deviation. And if your project deviates significantly from your plan, then take corrective action. That's all model says. Okay, so we have some key elements here, key requirements. Okay, if I take this one, the first one it says is track your effort, the schedule, and the budget. Okay, so we need to monitor constantly. We need to monitor, and in the estimation process, right? So you have estimated how many hours you need to complete the project, right? So from time to time, you need to say, okay, how many hours we spent, how many hours remaining to go? Am I on track, off track? You need to monitor. Similarly, okay, you're supposed to, by this time, how many, what are the tasks that are needs to be completed? Did I complete all of them, or am I running behind any of those tasks, right? We need to monitor. Similarly, budget, right? Hey, how much budget you have planned, month after month in, for year one, year plus one, right? Now you provided the, initial plan as a part of your project initiation, right? So where do we stand? Am I spending more? Am I spending less? All that needs to be monitored. Your effort, your schedule, your budget. Okay. Then we also need to track other planning parameters. Okay. Similarly, as a part of the project, you are identifying who are the key stakeholders, and you are also identifying what are the training needs. What are the hardware, software requirements for project execution, right? Okay, are you getting all of them? Because you said you need all of them. You said, okay, I need all these trainings. These are all the hardware, software I need for me to successfully execute the project, right? So these are all my stakeholders, and this is their level of involvement, right? So if are they, are we, is there like stakeholders are getting involved as we plan? Or, let's take for example, if some of the stakeholders, they are not getting involved at all, that is derailing your project, you may have to raise your red flag so that your SLT can jump in and do whatever they need to do. Similarly, you have some critical dependencies, you need to monitor them. Similarly, you said, okay, you need some hardware, software resources for you to successfully complete the project, but you are not getting them in time. Some licenses or whatever, right? If not, you will not be, as a project manager, you are responsible to make sure your project is completed, on time, within budget, within the promised quality, right? So for that to happen, you need to make sure these are the enablers. If any one of them are not in place, you cannot complete. So you need to monitor them also. Like they are as important as tracking your effort and schedule and budget. Okay, so once you track these, right, we need to take some corrective actions. Again, you don't need to take corrective actions for small deviations. You need to define, what is significant. What is significant, you need to define. And if your deviation goes beyond that, beyond the threshold, only then you need to invoke your corrective actions. Again, what are the corrective actions? Again, it's up to you. It's up to the project, up to the situation you are in. Sometimes we may add more resources. Sometimes we may push the schedule. We may do whatever need to do to bring the project on track, right? And the last item on this is, we also, as we track the project or as we are executing the project, we come across a lot of issues. Okay, issues could be many things. Like it could be like, I don't have resources, I have no licenses not there, or something or the other. Right now, we need to have a mechanism where you document all the issues that are identified during the course of project execution. We need to document them. We need to identify the person responsible for resolving that issue and the due date, so that now we can track them for closure. Again, this is not rocket science. This is very, very common sense approach. Whatever we are asking here is nothing drastic, nothing out of the way. Any questions on this one? Okay, so again, for this monitoring and control, again, I have identified what are the key message, what all we need to do, and we have also hyperlinked the process. Again, the monitoring, planning and monitoring goes so hand in hand. So this is the same process, like a planning and tracking process. Execution process template is the same. The only thing I wanted which is new here is the status review checklist. Okay, so as a part of your project execution, you might be having review meeting with your project team, including your business analysts, architects, developers, test engineers, right? So there are some key elements you need to track, right? So we kind of put together a checklist. It's like an agenda for your meeting, for your status review meeting. Okay, go through that status review checklist, make sure that you are covering every item. So these items are not different than what I mentioned. Okay, review the planned and effort, planned and actual effort, review the planned schedule, right? The same thing we put together in form of a checklist, so that we don't lose track of the agenda items there. Okay, so that is about monitoring and control. As a project manager, you are key for monitoring the project progress and taking corrective actions. And the next item I wanted to cover is about the risk and opportunities. Again, as a project manager, it's your responsibility to make sure that we identify all the potential risks, we analyze them, and take some corrective actions as appropriate, right? So that's very, very important for project, for successfully completing the project. Okay. Similarly, we also need to identify the opportunities. Very, very important, right? So risks are the one which will, it's like a potential, right? Potential unforeseen circumstances which will impact the project in a negative way, right? The risks are the one which will impact the project in a negative way. Opportunities, on the other side, is the one which impacts the project in a positive way. So we need to identify both risks as well as the opportunities. And we need to document them, we need to analyze them, we need to prioritize them, and we need to come up with some kind of a strategy on how to, manage those. Because some, not every risk we identify, we mitigate them. Some risks we mitigate, some we accept, some we avoid, some we transfer, some we, right? So we just need to identify what is our risk handling strategy. Similarly, opportunities, you may have so many opportunities out there, right? We need to do some kind of a cost benefit analysis. Okay, if I go after this opportunity, how much do I need to spend? What would be the business benefit? And if it makes sense from a cost benefit perspective, and you try to identify what is your approach. Am I going to exploit that opportunity? Whether am I going to ignore it? Am I going to share it? Whatever is the strategy appropriate for your project, you need to do this. Okay. Then again, I'm not going to go through this slide, but this one is very important. Okay, risk and opportunity. Very first thing we have to do is identify and characterize risk and opportunities. Okay, so when you're doing a risk, right? If you ask them, identify the risk without giving any, thing, it's very, very difficult. There's high probability we may not be able to identify all the risks. Okay, but if you say, hey, identify all the, use some kind of categories. I identify all the risks which can come from customer. Identify all the technology related risks. Identify all the related to resources. Then, if you use source of risk as a category, what happens is you check everything. Okay, there's a high probability that now you identify all the potential risks. For that reason, we need to do some structured risk identification workshops. Okay, so once you use the sources, right, then you need to identify those risks. Okay, so then you need to document them. So right now we have a risk and opportunity register template, which is an Excel-based template. I know that so far we are using ServiceNow to document the risks. But the CMMI model require us to implement or document the opportunities also. So since we couldn't implement that, at this point of time in ServiceNow, so we are asking people to start documenting the risks and opportunities in Excel for now. But in the meantime, we will get the ServiceNow updated, and once that is done, we will start using ServiceNow. Until then, we will be using the risk and opportunity register template, which is Excel based. Okay. Similarly, once you identify the risk, right, using these sources, right, we also need to identify the, what is that impacting. Okay, once if some risk, if it gets realized, some may impact the quality, some may impact the schedule, some may impact the cost. So you need to categorize them or group them. Okay, then once you identify and document the risk in the risk and opportunities in the log, next thing we have to do is we need to analyze them. We need to identify what is the probability you are currently doing it, right? What is the probability of the risk, happening? And if that happens, what is the impact? So you need to, identify them or assess them, and you need to determine the risk index value. Typically it's a multiplication of your risk probability, risk and impact value, the values, right? If you multiply them, you get your risk index value. And based on that, we will determine the relative importance, because we are not going to, mitigate every risk we identify. Some may be low, some may be, high priority rates. We just need to, use the probability and impact as a parameters to assign a relative importance for each identified risk. Similarly, the opportunities also needs to be analyzed based on the cost and the benefit analysis. And you need to prioritize them. Some companies, they do like a, orange, red, green risk, depending upon the risk probability and impact, right? So that they have some, visibility there. Then the next thing we have to do is, once you identify and prioritize them, we need to come up with a handling strategy. Okay, again, as I mentioned, we are not going to mitigate every risk we identify. It's not practically possible, right? We need to say, what is my handling strategy? Am I going to accept the risk? Accept means I'm not going to do anything, because, hey, if the risk get realized, it may cost me like $10,000, but to mitigate it, I may have to spend $20,000, right? Then I say, I accept it. Okay, let it come. If it comes, okay, that's fine. I'm willing to go spend that $10,000, because the mitigation is more costlier than the risk impact itself. In that case, we do the accept. We accept the risk. Mitigate, as it says, you identify some actions that needs to be implemented to reduce the probability or reduce the impact. Okay. Transfer. Okay, that means you don't want to take the risk, you transfer it to your vendors or suppliers, right, or customers, whoever it is, right? You transfer it. Or sometimes we avoid the risk. We don't even bid the project. If I know that there's a lot of risk, I don't even bid the project. That's how you avoid the risk, right? So you need to, for every risk you identify, you need to determine what is your risk handling strategy. Are you going to accept? Are you going to mitigate? Are you going to avoid? Are you going to transfer? Right? So based on that, you develop your mitigation or a contingency plan. If you are going to mitigate, obviously you'll have a mitigation plan. If you are going to accept, obviously you may have a contingency plans. Okay. So similarly for opportunities also, we just need to identify what is our opportunity strategy. Are we going to enhance the opportunity? Are we going to exploit the opportunity? Are we going to share it? Are we going to ignore it? And based on that, you develop your plans, right? So again, the risk is not one-time activity, right? So risk you identified during the project initiation, right? Very beginning of the project. Again, it's not done by project manager alone. It's done by the entire team. You need to pull all your teams together, team members together, and ask them to get involved in risk identification, risk and opportunity identification, because they are closer to the problem. They know better. Okay, so many times project managers try to identify the risk, and there's a high probability that we may not be able to identify every potential risk or opportunity that is associated with the project. So that's a good reason you need to involve the project team members there. Okay, that is one of the agenda item as a part of your project status review meeting, right? Every week or every month, whenever you are meeting with your project team, ask them, right? Do you anticipate any risk? Are there opportunities which we can exploit? Ask them, ask the project team. Then you can document them in the risk register. Okay, and we need to monitor risk on a regular basis. As I told you, risk is not a one-time thing. Risk gets evolved, right? So the new risk gets added, or sometimes the existing risk, either probability will change or the impact will change, right? Right. So the risks are not they're not static. They keep evolving. So you need to constantly review them and update at a regular frequency. Again, what frequency you need to update? Again, you need to define that in your project execution plan. Remember, in the project planning, you're preparing a project execution plan. That's a strategy document. That is where you need to say, hey, am I going to review and update my risk register once every month or once every quarter? You define whatever is frequency, but whatever you specify that frequency, you do it according to that frequency. Okay. And similarly, if there are any risks which are critical, they are red risks, right? The probability is 9, impact is 9. Those are the things obviously you wanted to, highlight it to your SLT, senior leadership team. Again, what risk needs to be escalated to the senior management team? What is your strategy? Obviously, that also needs to be documented as a part of your project execution plan. Project execution plan is like your Bible. Okay, you go and refer, we should spell it out how we are going to do each one of them. Okay, moving on to this slide. Again, this is a just simple, the key message here, what all the things we need to do. And also, we have provided the links, right? So, again, the process for the risk management is also included in the project planning and tracking, because risk is not different. It is a part of project planning and tracking activity. That's why we didn't create a separate process. It's kind of embedded in the same one. Project execution plan, that's where you define, how frequently you review, how do you escalate, when do you escalate the risk, you put it in your project execution plan. That's why I'm referring here. This is very important one. Okay, the risk and opportunity register template. This is a brand new, as I told you, we will currently, the ServiceNow does not have a provision to document the opportunities, which, that's when we are using, for time being, we'll be using an Excel-based template. Okay, the next topic I wanted to cover is the peer reviews, which is not so much project management, but I wanted to cover this topic. There are a couple of reasons. One is, peer reviews plays a very, very, very important role in successfully completing the project, because peer review is a mechanism, or a practice, which when we use it, we identify the defects early in the life cycle. That will help us to, eliminate some of the last minute surprises, people staying overnight, right? All that will eliminate it. It's a good practice. Okay. So an SDLC best practice wherein work products, like documents, your code, your design documents, requirement document, your software source code is peer reviewed by the author's colleagues or subject matter experts to identify the defects early in the life cycle, right? Typically, people, what they do is there's something called, I don't know, have you heard about a concept called left shift, right? So, if you find all your problems in your system testing or your, UAT testing, it's too late in the life cycle, right? So we wanted to find them early in the life cycle. That's why they call it the left shift. You write your requirement document, you review your requirement document to make sure your requirements are implementable, testable, and are there any missing requirement. You do your due diligence, when you're capturing your BRD itself, that's high probability that, okay, we get it right. And we are introducing quality into the products, from day one, right? Okay. So again, there are four key elements here. First thing, what we have to do is we need to identify the work products for peer review. Okay. What I mean by that is every project is different, right? Every project is different. Some project may have like 10 modules, other project may have, maybe one module, right? So depending upon your project scope, you generate a lot of other documentation or deliverables, right? Then the what products that are subjected to peer review will vary, right? For project X, maybe you have 20 documents. Maybe project Y, you only have like 5 documents to be peer reviewed because of the nature of the project, right? So that's the reason why what we need to do is we first need to identify what all the work products that are subjected to peer reviews. That needs to be determined. And you need to document that in the project execution plan. There is a provision in your project execution plan where you can document, okay, for this project, okay, these are all the artifacts that requires a peer review. You have a place where you can document that. Okay. So again, the artifacts that are subject to peer review include but not limited to, I kind of try to give you a list here, like a requirement document, your BRD, system requirement document, interface requirement documents needs to get peer reviewed. Your design document that includes your architecture document, your software design document, your database design documents, schemas, database schemas, or your stored procedures if you have any. Your source code, whatever the language you are using, could be Java, .NET, whatever the language you are using, right? You develop the source code that needs to be peer reviewed to make sure that we are following the coding standards and design standards there. Test plan and test procedures needs to get peer reviewed because we wanted to make sure that test procedures are written to cover every requirement. We don't want to have an incomplete test procedures. Similarly, planning documents also get peer reviewed. Your project plan, your cutover plans, whatever the plans you create, those also needs to get peer reviewed. Okay. These are some of the list. I'm not saying that this is the list, right? So you can use this when you're planning. Okay, as a project manager, we need to make sure that you are planning for peer reviews, because if these are not planned well, you will see quality get deteriorated in the project, and that will impact your project execution. The next item, once you identify the work products that are subject to peer review, the next item what we have to do is plan for peer reviews. Plan for and prepare for peer reviews. What I mean by that is you need to create a peer review plan, identifying the work products, right? You also need to identify what are the types of review you are going to do. What I mean by type of review is, sometimes you have in a formal peer review. Sometimes you may have like a desk check. Sometimes we may have like a round robin, right? There are several peer review techniques available depending upon the criticality of the documents. For example, you are developing a software for a like an unmanned like for example in a Tesla, if you're autonomous train or autonomous car, right? Obviously there is a lot of safety involved, right? obviously your requirements and design needs to have a formal peer review. Formal peer review where you have a lot of formality. You have like 4 or 5 people coming to the room and critiquing the document, right? But if you have a simple document, a simple portal which you are developing, hey, it's not so critical. You may have a desk review or a round robin check-in, right? So depending upon the criticality of the document or the application, you need to determine what is the type of peer review you need to use, or peer review techniques that needs to be used. You also need to identify the reviewers. Again, it's not that now you find somebody at 5 o'clock in the evening on a Friday and pull them and ask them to review. No, you need to plan. You need to identify who are the reviewers who need to review the document, and make sure that those tasks are included in your P6 schedule, right? Again, if you don't put it in your P6 schedule, they're never going to happen, right? You need to accommodate so that people know that those tasks need to be completed. And you also identify the reviewers. You need to put them as a part of the person responsible. Okay. Again, peer review meetings are scheduled, and the material is circulated in advance. What I mean by that is, again, you cannot pull somebody into the room and ask them to review at 5 o'clock in the evening. It's not going to be quality review, right? So you schedule the peer reviews in advance, and we give them like 1 or 2 days in advance, circulate the material so that now they review the material in advance. Okay. Typically, it's not a best practice to review the document in the meeting itself. Let's take you have like a 200-page document. You schedule a meeting, you open the document, go line by line. It's not going to happen. It's not going to be effective, right? You circulate the document in advance, ask everybody to review it, and when you review it, okay, limit the discussion to the review observations. Okay, we should not review the document in the actual meeting. You should discuss the review observations. That's how it should be. That is the best practice. Okay, and encourage active participation. Make sure that everybody participate, provide feedback, and also collect the data. Time you are spending for reviews. Type of defects or number of defects. The reason why we need this is, okay, for example, let's take I have 200-page document. Sometimes they schedule for like a 30 minutes meeting. Hey, can you really review 200-page document in 30 minutes? Practically not possible, right? So you need to use the data. Okay, what is your review efficiency? How many lines of code I can review for an hour, or how many lines of code, or how many pages I can review? A design document I can review. Right? You need to use the data for planning purpose. For that reason, CMMI model says, collect the data, analyze the data, and use that data for your future or for your planning purpose. Okay, and all the findings or the comments you receive from your peer reviews needs to be documented, right? And we need to track them to closure. Okay, and also, as I mentioned, we need to analyze the peer review data so that we can identify the improvements. Okay, so what I mean by that is, if you let's take you have done the code reviews, you found like 100 problems, right? 100 issues, right? You need to say, okay, what type of issues? If like out of 100, 80 of them are related to non-compliance to the coding standards. Okay, then we say, hey, why do we have so many issues with not complying to the coding standard? Is the team not familiar with it, or they have not been trained, or whatever it is? You can do some root cause analysis and take some corrective action so that we can reduce, or make some improvements. Okay. And my next slide basically talks about peer review process. Okay, here we have a peer review process, which is new, which we have actually created, which is outlining the things what I mentioned so far, identifying the work products, preparing for peer reviews, how to conduct reviews, types of reviews. All that is documented in the peer review process. Okay. Again, I have the link here. I encourage you to open the document, review it, familiarize. Okay. Again, one other thing I wanted to make sure here is these process documents are not static in nature. Okay. We wrote them, we developed them incorporating the CMMI requirements. But as you start implementing, you may find some improvements to this, right? I want you to come back to us. Hey, Shiva, we need to add this, or we need to do something different to make it better. Please, we welcome your suggestions. That's how we make our process much more robust. Okay. Similarly, we have a Excel-based form to document, like every time you have a peer review, either it could be a requirement document, design document, or a code review. We need to capture the findings from the peer review so that we can track them. Right. So we have an Excel-based template. I have here. Similarly, we have a checklist for requirement reviews. We have a checklist for design review. We have a checklist for code reviews. And I didn't put the hyperlink here, but we have a template for analyzing the defects data. Okay, I missed putting the hyperlink here. I will do that before I circulate. Okay. So any questions on the 5 topics I covered so far? I started with the CMMI. What is CMMI? Why we are doing it? Then I covered the estimation. I covered project planning, and I covered tracking. I talked about risk management. I covered the peer reviews. I tried to explain the best practices and the key process we have incorporated as a part of our stage gate process. Any questions? We have like 25 minutes.
Steve, I have a couple of things. If you could go back to the SharePoint site.
Sure. Yeah.
And if you go up to the top level. So what we're looking for is the stage gate artifacts.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Folder, that folder. Go to the stage gate artifacts folder.
This one, right? Yeah, project stage gate artifacts.
Right. Right.
You want me to click on this?
So all projects need, yeah. So if you open up that one. So all projects need to upload their stage gate artifacts to this site. When we go for the benchmark appraisal, that's coming up in the end of October, the appraiser will go to our folders. They'll go to each folder for each project, and they'll need to be able to locate all the stage gate artifacts here. So what we'll need each project to do, each project manager to do is to go in and create a folder for their project, and then start uploading their artifacts as they progress through each stage. You'll see the nomenclature here is project number and then project name from ServiceNow. And we will be that'll be the nomenclature for the top level folder, and we will be sending out some structure for how to organize certain folders beneath that. I think it will most likely be by stage gate, but that will be coming soon. Also, there's a link there. If you see the quarterly EPMO training calendar, actually the New Jersey PMO does conduct training throughout the month. I believe it's the second Tuesday of each month. They do the SGP training for all new PMs or PMs that want a refresher. Thanks. And then also the other folder, playbooks and processes. You'll see the StageGate playbook here, StageGate process playbook. It'll probably be the next page. Here's your StageGate process playbook.
That is what Naren presented this morning, this afternoon, sorry.
Correct. Right. And then in the
It's the same thing, what was presented. Okay.
correct, so that's where you can find it.
Yeah.
And then if we can go to the training folder, go back up and training materials. So what we'll do is we will post the link for this recorded session here for trainings. I'm saying under training materials rather.
Yeah, understanding.
And you'll notice that this site looks very similar to the New Jersey EPMO site, and it does. Very similar structure. We thought there would be some benefit to having some consistency. Just be sure that as you access templates and start to use them, make sure that you're pulling them from the Long Island library. As Siva mentioned, there have been a number of them that were updated to add some of the best practices from CMMI. So you'll want to make sure that you're using the Long Island version of the templates for Long Island projects. As long as you come back to the Long Island site and pull your templates, you'll be fine. Another way to tell that you're pulling the correct version, that you'll see the nomenclature. If you want to go ahead and open that one up.
Which one?
Either one, tools, templates.
Okay. Sorry.
So you see the name convention, PSEG-LI. So the processes or the templates that are common between New Jersey and Long Island just have a single name. The ones that have been enhanced or created as new for Long Island projects, those follow the nomenclature of PSEG-LI. Okay. And as we go along, we'll be sending you communications on a regular basis. What was the support slide in the deck? Did I miss that? For that.
You mean this one?
There's reminders, and then there was the one about support that.
This
okay,
last slide. Last slide. I didn't come to this one yet, so.
Oh, okay. You haven't covered it yet.
Yeah, this is the last slide I am meant to cover. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but you can go ahead, Ben. The message here is, there's a lot of information to consume. We spent like last 90 minutes also going through different topics, different requirements, a lot to consume, right? And again, don't worry, we are here to support you. We will be doing a lot of, hand holding. We will continue to provide the training, foundation training, and also the, we'll be training to the other, project team members. Then on top of it, we will have a, help desk sessions via Zoom, every day, starting, all the way till we go for the final appraisal. Right? We will have that. And we will also, if anyone requires additional support, we can have a workshop. Okay, if you're doing a risk identification, you need some help, just invite us, right? We'll be there, we'll help you, we'll explain you what goes in what section. Okay, you're not alone in this. We are together, we'll help you, we'll walk you through, we'll do the hand holding to make sure that we are successful together.
And just so everyone's aware, in the background while Siva was going through the presentation, I was trying to add everyone to the SharePoint site, and I'm getting an error message. So trying to resolve that right now. So by the end of the day, I'll have everyone added to the site. So if you just checked a moment ago, you may not have access yet. I'm trying to work through that issue, but we'll have it by the end of the day. So everyone's on mute. If you do have a question or comment, we welcome it. Please take yourself off mute and questions. No one has any questions, then we'll go ahead and stop the recording and we'll give a few minutes back to you for your day. Again, we appreciate everyone joining. Do have, as Sigma said, we are on this journey together, and the goal is to deliver our best for LIPA, and this process improvement effort will help get us there. So thank you for your time, and everyone have a good rest of your day.